That's fine.
Andrea
and Ronnie? Ronnie speaking in the capacity of the Neighborhood Association President. Andrea went to the Maverick show last week.
Good evening, Mayor Rothschild, council members, Mr. City Manager, and staff. My name is Ronnie Kotwicka. For 37 years, I have lived at 3230 East Seneca Street in the Palo Verde neighborhood. I am speaking for my neighbors in my capacity as president of the Palo Verde Neighborhood Association. I am also here on behalf of the representatives from Dodge Flower, Garden District, Oak Flower, and Palo Verde Neighborhood Association, all stakeholders in the Alvarnon Grant Initiative. As residents and taxpayers of the City of Tucson, we object to the transfer of the Series 6 bar liquor license, which currently belongs to the Mint Bar, to the Wild Boys No. 1. On April 26, 2012, Tucson Police Department filed a non-compliance recommendation against the transfer of the Mint Series 6 license. This non-compliance and recommendation cited a number of concerns, including applicant Ricardo Garcia failed to disclose his ownership interest in another bar, strip club. That bar, Club Envy, generated 189 TPD responses over a 2-year period. Those responses included 1 homicide related to the club, 1 sexual assault, 5 aggravated assaults, 21 assaults, 3 weapons violations, 2 narcotics, and 8 liquor violations, 7 disorderly conduct calls, 8 suspicious activity calls, and 29 disturbance calls. Mr. Garcia failed to disclose the full extent of his criminal record, including several outstanding arrest warrants for failure to appear in court and operation of illegal dance halls. Applicant Chris Smith failed to disclose the full extent of his criminal record, including an assault on a police officer. TPD concluded that the applicant had not shown that they are capable, qualified, and reliable to be issued this liquor license. Title 19 of the Arizona Administrative Code governs the actions of the State Liquor License Board, Section R19 1-302. Requires any person who has a legal or equitable interest in a spirituous liquor license to file a statement of such interest with the department. Mr. Garcia's failure to disclose his partial interest in Club Envy violated, if not the letter, then the spirit of Title 19. You may notice that Mr. Garcia's name is no longer on the application. That fact that he is now hiding behind his agent demonstrates a pattern of practices of hiding pertinent information from those charged with making his final decision. A meeting of concerned Palo Verde neighbors, Ward 6 representatives, and Mr. Berdesky was held on April 9, 2012. An article by the Star's Josh Berdesky appeared in the newspaper on Thursday, April 12, 2012. There was once a Wild Boy Show Club in Tucson, which later became Club Envy, which later shut down after a shooting. While Garcia City held events at Club Envy, he was never an owner, manager, or partner there. In the memorandum from Tucson Police, we have shown that Mr. Garcia was an owner of Club Envy. The article goes on to quote Mr. Garcia, "We have no plans to make this a strip bar. Garcia emailed me from Europe yesterday morning." The article continues, "We are happy with the Mint just the way it is. Chris and I have no plans to make any changes. In fact, we also kept all the previous employees," he wrote. "The customers have been coming here for a long time, and we have been meeting most of them. They're all very nice, and we seem to have a great rapport with them. Yet in our meeting of May 3rd, 2012, at the Ward 6 office with Palo Verde and Dodge Flower neighbors, Councilmember Kozachik and his aide, Bonnie Medler, and Mint representatives Ricardo Garcia, Chris Smith, and Kevin Cramber, Mr. Garcia stated, "After working in the bar for the last number of weeks, we found it to be only break even, and that's not our goal. We plan on keeping karaoke on Wednesdays, a band on Friday, and holding 2 mail reviews on Friday and Saturday." A follow-up article on May 14, 2012 by Veronica Cruz of the Star stated, "One of the Mint's new owners and Wild Boys founder, Ricardo Sky Garcia, said he and his business partner, Chris Smith, are dedicated to preserving their base of loyal customers at the bar and only recently decided to host Wild Boy performances after looking at what kind of traffic the bar brings in. As members of the Alvarnon Grant Initiative, we have worked tirelessly over the past 4 years to address the crime issues that have plagued our neighborhoods. Our 4 neighborhoods banded together and worked with the businesses to address the issues of criminal activity, drug use, and prostitution. We work to build solid relationships with the Ward 6 office, TPD, and other city departments to create neighborhoods that are safer, friendlier, and more attractive places for families to live. We are a diverse set of neighborhoods. There are 3 neighborhood schools with a daycare facility and the Boys and Girls Club located within our boundaries. Many immigrant families are settling into our neighborhood, bringing with them young children. We have watched our neighborhoods slowly turn around and become attractive areas to live. Throughout all of this, the Mint Bar has operated as a neighborhood bar. In the same period, the Club Envy was generating 189 police calls. The Mint generated a minimal number of calls for service. Changing the Mint from a neighborhood bar to a strip club is not in the best interest of our neighborhoods. The applicants expect to draw nearly 500 patrons each night, and that's what was said to us at the meeting that we had with them. They have indicated that they will have little involvement in the bar, and they will rely on their employees to monitor the behavior of their clients. They have no plans to hire a bouncer or provide security staff until they have the money to do so. The volatile combination of alcohol and raunchy strip act is inappropriate in a neighborhood setting, and it undermines all our hard work to combat the crime and slow decay of these 4 neighborhoods. Based on their actions to date, we urge you to reject the applicant's request for transfer of the Series 6 license from the Mint to the Wild Boys. Thank you.
And before, thank you, and before Andrea speaks, I just want to backtrack a little bit, Mike. I had a video of the act from the Maverick last week, and the city attorney prevented me from showing it because of FCC concerns. The FCC violation would have been indecency and profanity. I find it intriguing that when I asked Mr. Garcia what accounted for the change of use, words of art, there was no hesitation. It is a change of use, and I think it is incumbent on this city to recognize that that occurred, and let's not turn a blind eye to the fact that this began as a lazy little bar, and the owner says we're changing the use, and now it's too profane to even show it at a city council meeting. So maybe Andrea can fill in the blanks of what she observed last week.
Thank you. I'd be glad to. Good evening, everyone. I wrote an email to my neighborhood as well as our council member in response to what I witnessed at the Wild Boys Club, and I did get a video of Mr. Garcia not speaking favorably of our neighbors, our neighborhood, or our protests to the change of venue. Should I go ahead and read my email? I know there are pieces of it.
Yeah, and I guess the city attorney will cut you off when he thinks you're crossing the line, but in as much as it's good enough for a middle school and a church and a high school, it's probably good enough for this crowd.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, is how I started. I attended the Wild Boys show last night with a friend and neighbor who would also like to not see the Mint transformed into a Wild Boys show club. The Maverick has live music 5 nights per week and is well-versed and equipped to handle large crowds. There were 2 bouncers at the door and a pay window for the entrance fee. Additionally, we noted that one of the front entrance bouncers walks the parking lot. The parking lot is well lit with ample parking for the patrons. Inside and throughout the show, there were 2 more bouncers. One sat in the crowd while the other quietly made his way around. It should be noted that the staff were Maverick personnel and not affiliated with the Wild Boys. As well, the Maverick is a large venue with more than enough space to handle the 60-plus attendees. I have been to the Mint on New Year's Eve when the crowd was larger than a normal night. At that event, there were probably 35 to 40 people, and the place is what I would consider packed. There was very little room to move around and almost no seating. In comparison, the Mint would not be suitable for the kind of crowd that turned out on a Wednesday night at the Maverick. The music was deafening, and the crowd was just as loud, with women hooting, hollering, and in some cases, screaming. When my friend and I stepped outside the door to see what kind of sound was to be heard there, while muted a bit, it was still incredibly loud, and the sounds of women screaming could be heard from the parking lot 2 buildings away. Please note that the Maverick front doors were open, which allowed the sound to travel out. However, had the doors been shut to trap some sound inside, the level of noise would have been completely unbearable. As it is, my ears are still ringing this morning, and earplugs would have been suggested. While I am an advocate that the show itself is not the issue, I feel the nature of it deserves some description. The show itself was not the class act that Sky and Chris would have led us to believe. I spoke with one of the women that had been brought up on the stage, and she said that when the dancer had picked her up and bounced her roughly with her legs around his waist and laid her down on the stage and mimicked a missionary position, she wanted off the stage feeling humiliated. The feeling was intensified as after laying her down, she tried to get up only to be pushed down by the dancer 2 more times. The same dancer, only a short while later, flipped a young woman upside down, put his face between her legs, and proceeded to shake his penis against her face. I noted she left a short while later. Sky himself had a dance in which at one point he thrust his penis against a woman's chest with such force that the chair beneath her was being pushed back and she was trying to lean out of the way. It was abundantly clear that the women being rubbed on and gyrated against were in no way having their bodies or dignity respected. On a whole, the show was raunchy, trashy, and no more than a group of 4 men simulating rough sexual acts. If I had to give any sort of positive review, I would have to say that Chris was surprisingly respectful in his dance and was probably the only one who kept his penis off of faces. The show was frightfully disorganized, wrought with technical problems involving music, and several times dancers that were expected to be performing were nowhere to be found. The show also included several remarks made by Sky denouncing the liquor board and requests made to tell the board that the women of Tucson need this type of show. I beg to differ. As well, Sky made it clear that he has no intention of giving any sort of respect to the surrounding neighborhoods and their inhabitants, as he openly slandered the residents a total of 3 times throughout the night. He also made announcements telling the patrons that he and Chris now own the Mint and would be holding shows there Friday and Saturday nights, as well as Wednesdays, and a special Wednesday afternoon show at 12:45, touting that all the women's husbands are at the strip clubs. Why shouldn't they be? The shows announced there are a far cry from what the neighborhood representatives were told. At first, we had heard that they weren't planning to make any changes to the Mint. Then the story was told that they would have 1 or 2 shows a month, and I apologize, I was incorrect on that. It was on a week. Now the advertisements being made are for 3 to 4 shows per week. In my opinion, it would only be a matter of time until the shows are 5 nights per week, and the venue would be operating as a full-time male strip club. I had attached a video to this email that was in which I was able to capture Sky announcing the shows and openly making rude remarks of the neighborhood residents, in particular our PVNA president. The very beginning of the video is missing, in which he started off by saying that he and Chris now own the Mint and need the support of the women in the audience to, quote, fend off the neighborhood bitch and her whining neighbors who call themselves women and business people. From there, the video began. I apologize for the quality of the video as it was taken by my phone. I did not expect to capture such a gem. I would guess that the length of the show and the lack of class drove many women away, as about a quarter of them had left by the halfway point. My friend and I were determined to stay until the bitter end and see what happened. As expected, while the male patrons were driven away during the show, as it neared the end, they began to trickle in. They sat at the bar ignoring the gyrating dancers and leering at the women in the audience. After the conclusion of the dancing, the men that had made their way in immediately made their way around the room, talking to the women and offering to buy drinks. One man that pulled into the parking lot asked as we were leaving, asked my friend with me, who happened to be a man, if there were any good-looking, horny women inside or if he shouldn't bother. As men stayed away during the show, it was quite clear what they were trolling for after the show was done. While the after show had only gathered about 10 men, I was thankful to have brought a male friend and to have found a parking place near the street